It's that time of the day. It's time for Talking Pints. Absolutely. I'm joined by Dr. Madsen Pirie from the Adam Smith Institute. Madsen, welcome.
Cheers.
To the programme. Cheers to you. Now, 1977, the Adam Smith Institute is set up.
Yes.
And with good reason.
Indeed.
I think top rate income tax in this country, was 83%.
98.
That was unearned, I think, wasn't it?
If you were foolish enough to invest in Britain's future productivity,
yes,
they slapped a 15% surcharge on you.
So up to 98%.
From 83 to 98.
Yeah, and many aspects of our national economic life and social life were under the control of government.
Yes, indeed. The government ran the railways, it produced the steel, the coal, the ships, the planes, the buses, the trucks. It ran almost everything.
Even the travel industry, I think, was part nationalised.
It was indeed.
Yeah, it was quite extraordinary. For those that don't know, who was Adam Smith and why is he the man you've named your institute after?
Well, he was, of course, the great Scottish economist who in 1776 published what was the seminal book that fundamentally invented modern economics. Yep. It was called The Wealth of Nations. And in it, he said that you don't get rich by, selling more than you buy from abroad and storing gold under the king's throne. You get rich by increasing the productivity, the goods and services you produce. That's the wealth of nations, the productive power of its peoples. That was it.
And so the question then is what the right model is by which we do this. And you clearly believe in a free economy and a free society. So we should be reasonably free to go out and do what we like. But there have to be some rules, don't there, to protect others from greed, bad behaviour. So how do you draw, as a free marketeer, how do you draw the line, Madsen?
Well, the line is between laissez-faire, which means you don't do anything, you just let it rip, and being pro-free market, which means you put the rules in place. That means that any competition is going to be fair, that the people who are presently there can't exclude new entrants to the market by, restrictive practices. So it has to be maintained by regulation and legislation, but preferably with a very light touch, because if you over-regulate it, you're trying to micromanage businesses that really should make the decisions themselves. You can't have government trying to second-guess what they should be doing.
And actually, Brexit was part of this, wasn't it? Brexit was part of this. Actually, us having the ability to reduce legislation, to repeal legislation, which within the European framework was pretty much impossible.
Oh yes, the
control
from Brussels was increasing year by year. We were under a mountain of detailed regulation. For example, we in Britain would like to do what we call result-driven regulation. You shall not emit a certain amount of noxious gases. In Europe, they want to tell you how to do it. They want to describe the exact technology you have to use in order to do that. That's process-driven regulation. Now we're out. Now Brexit has happened. We can get back to result-driven regulation and leave it to inventiveness and ingenuity to find different ways of achieving the desired objectives.
So here we are. Brexit has happened. It's not perfect. There are things like Northern Ireland that need to be re-looked at. But are we taking advantage of that?
Not yet, but I'm hoping we will, and it looks increasingly as though we're going to. The signs coming from Whitehall and from Parliament, from Westminster, are that we're now beginning. For example, genetically edited foods.
I just mentioned the super tomato with lots of vitamin D in it.
We couldn't have done that in the European Union, you see, because they have a sort of they're almost fanatical in their opposition to this. They treat genetically edited foods the same as genetically modified foods. The difference is, of course, with genetically edited doesn't mean you're bringing in outside genes from other organisms. You're just editing within the gene. And we can now do things like that we couldn't do before.
So you think as time goes by, the British government, Whitehall, are going to start to seize these opportunities? I mean, you genuinely think they see the opportunity?
Well, we're going to do our best to draw their attention to those opportunities. That's, after all, what we do.
Yeah. But when it comes to tax, I mean, when you look at this country, when you look at tax, NIC, you look at the increase in NIC, the increase in dividends for people running limited companies that's just come in, corporation tax going up 30%. I mean, quite extraordinary. And then, what about the tax on a pint, the tax on a packet of cigarettes, the tax on filling up the car? I mean, compared to other countries, Madsen, how heavily taxed are we?
Too much is the answer. And you may be interested to know that tax on your pint, or indeed my wine, is a tax on a tax, because they put the duty on, and then they charge VAT on the total amount. So you're paying VAT on a duty, a tax upon a tax.
Yeah.
It really is shocking.
And that's the same with petrol and diesel too.
It is indeed, yes, yeah. And that's something that should be stopped. Now, we went down from that top 98, 83% plus 15. We went down eventually under Nigel Lawson to 40% top rate. And the Treasury made a lot more money from that 40%.
Now, you see, this is the Laffer curve that people talk about.
Yeah.
How does that, I mean, explain to folks at home, how, when you cut taxes on those that earn the most money, does the Exchequer get greater income? How does that work?
Well, there's two factors there. One is that the lower the taxes, the less worthwhile it is for you to do tax avoidance, tax sheltering, Cayman Islands companies, things like that. You might as well just pay the tax, because that's quite an expensive process, employing those accountants to do that kind of work. Two, the main thing, though, is the economy grows. And therefore, the total amount of production that is being taxed increases. So although it's a lower rate, it's a broader base. So you're taking in more money. And those two reasons are why the Laffer curve works, and why you can lower rates and secure more tax revenue for the Treasury.
So right at the moment, as I understand it, the tax burden is the highest it's been since Clement Attlee was in power, 71, 72 years ago. There's no prospect of Labour actually, I don't think, cutting taxes. Although
this is under a Tory government that level has been reached.
This is my question to you. I mean, as I understood it, historically, the Adam Smith Institute had great influence over Republican thinking in America and conservative thinking in this country, and you were very much on that. I mean, you're not politically aligned directly, but you've had perhaps more influence in those areas.
Well, we beat the drum for free enterprise and free peoples, daily.
So what influence do you think you have today with this current Conservative Party?
Well, we can point out that countries that do go down the road of lowering taxes and regulation invariably have economic growth. And that economic growth is what makes everybody richer.
Well, let's see some examples.
Heavens, I can think Hong Kong in its heyday, Singapore in its heyday, South Korea, and then the so-called secondary tigers, Malaysia. It just works. The fact is, these things come and go in cycles, and at the moment we're in a cycle where people are looking at regulation and high taxes. But the examples from abroad of countries that do it differently will show us that lower taxes and lighter regulation will achieve the economic growth that makes us all wealthier.
Now, you also believe in your founding aims in a free society.
Yes, indeed.
And it feels to me like virtually every human activity is now either already regulated by government or there is some proposal to regulate it in the not-too-distant future. And I just don't hear across the road here, across the river here, in Westminster, I just don't hear those voices for cutting the size of the state. It feels to me, and obviously the pandemic being a very extreme example, but it feels like the state gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
It does, and if the Department of Health is not too far from us now, and they want to regulate what you eat, how much salt, how much sugar, they want to regulate how much fat you eat, how many calories you take in.
But it's for our own good.
That's
what they say.
They say that, but how do they know what's for our own good? I think there are some decisions better made by people individually, that's all. Give them information about, what certain foods have consequences for them, yes, and then let them make their decision in the light of that knowledge. That's fine. That's called a free society.
Well, I would agree with that 100%. I can't stand being told what to do. I never could.
Me neither.
No, all through my life. But the point I'm making to you is that narrative. I mean, Reagan was perhaps the best example of this.
He was terrific.
What was it? The worst 8 words in the English language.
I'm from the government. I'm here to help you.
Yeah. I mean, and Roddy was, and did it with humour and did it beautifully. Is there anything in British politics that makes you think we can reverse this tide towards big government?
The answer is, of course, I don't know, because, a week is a long time in politics. There are some people we talk to in Parliament who we think have the right instincts. Heaven knows whether they'll emerge, in high cabinet positions in the future, but the hope is that they will. The point is about free markets and free choices is that they work. they produce the results. Not only is it morally and ethically superior to let people be free to be themselves, it's also more efficient. It delivers the goods. It produces the wealth.
So why do younger generations, and we sort of goes in a cycle, what is it about socialism that is so appealing to young people?
My guess is probably, I mean, I'm not the first person to say this by any means, but it's probably that you look at the world with all its imperfections and you think, I could do better than that. I could remake the world to be better and cleaner and nicer. As you get a little bit older, you realise that it ain't quite that simple, that there are unintended consequences. And every time socialism has been tried, it's ended in abject failure. And then the left has all said, well, that wasn't real socialism. But we
need more of it.
They say that every time. This time it's going to be different. And it never is. It's always the same.
And a final thought on capitalism. This capitalism has got this, terrible name. Capitalism is so unfair. We need. I don't think we're living in capitalism. I think we're living in corporatism. I feel we're living in an age where big firms, big banks, big government, all together kind of make life very difficult for everybody else.
Well, we have some degree of capitalism. Fundamentally, capitalism means that instead of consuming, you actually invest for future reward. That's basically what it means. You use your wealth as capital to produce more future wealth. Adam Smith thought that a little bit went a long way. He said all that's needed to take, a country from the depths of poverty to the heights of affluence: peace, easy taxes, and a tolerable administration of justice. Not even a good one, just a tolerable one. And I think he got it absolutely right. No war, right? Yep. Low taxes, and a reasonably good protection of property rights and things like that. And yes, you don't need to be totally capitalist.
So the principles of 1776 from that book that he wrote are alive and well in Madsen, Pirie.
Well, they're alive and well in the world today, and those principles have lifted more people out of abject misery, starvation, and subsistence in the last 30 years than anything that's ever been done before in human history. More people are alive today who would have been dead had those principles not been applied. Globalization, the spread of free markets, the entry of the vast labour forces of China and India onto the global markets have basically reduced poverty to a fraction of what it was. Abject poverty is now a tiny fraction of what it was.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.